Hey, Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. I hope that you had a great weekend, whether you're listening to this on my YouTube channel, you're listening to this via iTunes or Spotify. I hope that you've been productive in the last few weeks and taking advantage of this time. I think that while COVID is something that is horrible and just plaguing the world, and we all hope that there's light at the end of the tunnel here, at the same time, it does give you a lot of time to focus and buckle and hunker down and start to work on that project, which you maybe have been pushing aside for the last couple of years. So that being said, I wanted to do a bit of a different episode today in that I want to bring on a member of my team, someone who has had a lot of experience writing with me, who's done a lot of research for me. This is Jack, who's basically one of my writers for crowdcrux.com. And he came on to talk a little bit about the statistics. I always mess up the word statistics when it comes to Kickstarter and kind of where the opportunity is this year, and not looking at, a lot of these projects we hear about with Kickstarter happened years ago. Some of them will research and I'm like, hey dude, we're on a coaching call and I'm like, hey dude, this one you pulled up is actually from 2014, right? We want to always have recent examples and fresh information and fresh stats, fresh news. I'm all about really being on the cutting edge, right? When it comes to crowdfunding, but also when it comes to marketing. I think you have to play there, because if you're working off of tactics and strategies that worked years and years ago, but they don't work today, then you're going to be in for a bit of a rude awakening out there. And I just find so much of the teachings in this niche are quote unquote best practices, but it doesn't really shed light on what's best practices today. What is working today? That's been my entire life's work, for the last 8 years, is bringing it to raw, bringing it to real, and just kind of in a no-nonsense fashion. And when I ask questions, sometimes they're really dumb questions, right, of the guests that I ask. And that's because I think it's important to just be always open to new techniques and new ways of going about things. And that's really the kind of energy that I'm trying to bring with today's podcast episode. Now, if you've been listening to my show for the last couple of years, or you've been listening just the last couple of days even, I would really appreciate it if you could take a second to just give me a rating and review on iTunes if you're listening there. In addition, if you haven't yet, you can pick up a copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula, a book that I've written, which is available on Audible. And I really wrote this book in mind to really break this down into a formula, right? I'm really big into not reinventing the wheel. And there are some elements of Kickstarter that are constantly being updated, but there are also foundational elements that are what are resulting behind these different projects getting funding. And that's kind of what I put into the Kickstarter Launch Formula. That also being said, I hope that you enjoyed today's podcast episode. You take a lot of value out of it. I would love to get some feedback from you. You can always shoot me an email, let me know what you think. Check out my new website, crowdcrux.com. I got a whole new theme there, going with a bit of a different direction when it comes to more of a clean looking kind of vibe, and trying to bring on different voices as well, which I think will be interesting for you, because then you're getting different perspectives and it can be really interesting with that cross-pollination of ideas. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's coming up right after this. This podcast episode is sponsored by The Gadget Flow. The Gadget Flow reaches over 28 million people, and they've been around since 2012. They are Indiegogo and Kickstarter experts. They featured over 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns, and if you have a technology or design campaign, it is a great platform to generate awareness and get backers. You can check them out at thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. Jack, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sal. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Definitely, man. So I think we can kind of get started talking a little bit about COVID, right? Because COVID-19 was a huge event in 2020. Did we see any effect of that on some of the projects that are out there on Kickstarter?
Yeah, we definitely saw some different trends, right? So it took some time for creators to settle into coronavirus, right? We kind of felt the effects hit us in March. And then project launches were down 25% in April as compared to 2019, right? So creators were a little bit hesitant. They weren't quite ready to maybe launch a campaign while we were all dealing with, personal issues, all these things. Our whole world was being overturned, right?
Yeah, totally.
But backers were actually aggressive as ever during coronavirus, right? So people who were looking to support Kickstarter campaigns were still out there supporting them. So by August, I think creators kind of started to realize that. We were back up to about the same amount of launches. And then by September of 2020, we were actually seeing better campaign success rates than in September of 2019. So people who back Kickstarter campaigns, it looks like they're basically seeing this as necessary spending. Now, granted, we're dealing with a wealthier demographic probably, but at the same time, not many industries saw like consistency or growth in 2020. Basically, it was kind of the year of crowdfunding and cannabis.
That's crazy, man. I think honestly, a lot of it too is people are bored, right? They're bored at home and they're like, "This is a cool product. I want to try this out."
Yeah, exactly. It just seems like the backers, themselves, they weren't scared off by larger economic trends. They really were still excited about campaigns. Yeah, they were probably bored at home. A lot of home products were launched. People were looking to, make additions to their space to basically get solutions to their boredom and, kind of make their homes a more exciting place to quarantine, I think.
Yeah, I mean, also surprises me. Success rates actually rose. It looks like from 46% to 51% from 2019 to 2020.
Yeah, so that was in the month of September, particularly. So you think we kind of went through the initial phase of coronavirus and then kind of lightened up during the summer, and by the fall, both creators were comfortable launching and backers were there to support the campaign. To think that over half of campaigns were successfully funded in September, I mean, that's pretty incredible when you consider, the nature of startups, especially.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to some of the different categories, like, did you see any interesting insights there, whether that's design, technology, music, creative? Like, what did you see with categories? Any interesting stats?
Yeah, so the music category actually saw the largest share of successful campaigns. So granted, the music category, it's a lot of artists. You're seeing a lot of smaller goals between $1,000, $10,000, but still, it proves that artists are thriving on the platform, which has been a goal for Kickstarter since they launched. And then you have the big hitter categories like games, design, tech, which were responsible for most of the funds raised on the platform. They captured the largest share of products launched on the platform that raised over $100,000. But success rates for game, designs, tech, they're lower than music and some of the artistic categories. And I just think that's due to more competition, more risk on the part of the backers, and it's just more expensive to back, right? In a lot of those smaller music campaigns, you can kind of go in. Maybe the circle's a little bit smaller, right? A musician that's trying to raise $2,000 to let's say mix and master an album, they might have a lot of friends and family that they can call on. But, when you're a tech product trying to raise $100,000, you got to bring in a lot of strangers for that. You probably just can't just go to your inner circle. But
I think it's also like just a reflection of that. When you have a tech or a design product, there's a bit of a wider audience. With music, the more you get more well known, obviously the bigger campaign you can have. But in the early days, you're just also trying to get the word out there about your fans, right? And trying to get a lot of people in the door who are your fans and maybe some new ones. So you're kind of still a budding musician, I think, which is why it might be lower funding amounts possibly.
Yeah, and I think, but that's what makes Kickstarter a really cool platform for musicians and artists is you can basically go in there with little to no following, and as we talked about with tech products, like if you have a good product, if you're releasing good music, you can kind of use Kickstarter as not only a means to get your name out there, which is huge for branding for musicians, but also to get money. That's just, there's not many opportunities out there for small time musicians to actually get money for their projects. So I think that's just a really, cool way that Kickstarter goes to work for the little guy.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when it comes to this, I mean, there's tons of different campaigns that we saw that were launched this past year. Do any of the ones that you were researching kind of stand out in your mind that were interesting or that you found to be really cool?
Yeah, absolutely. So one that, I think just kind of stood out to everybody was a product called Terra Planter. They raised $6.3 million basically to, come up with a better way to grow plants. Their tagline was, you can visibly follow the journey from seed to plant. And it made it easy to grow plants in a plant-obsessed society. I think just a lot of my own friends, especially in quarantine with everybody being inside, everybody was buying plants. Now, I'm not sure if Terra Planter, launched with coronavirus in mind, but their timing was really good. But they recognized, demand for plant growth basically, and then they innovated an easier way
They had
for people to do it.
55,000 backers.
I know. I mean, it's incredible. But I'm just like, I'm looking at my Dieffenbachia plant in the corner of my apartment, and I was just thinking, I should have put that like in my Terra Planter. Like, genuinely, it is hard, strangely, to like maintain plants. And their plant grower, it was designed so that the plant would only absorb a certain amount of water. And you think about plants, humans, how long have we been growing plants? Probably thousands and thousands of years, and then here we have this product show up on Kickstarter that says, hey, here's a better, easier way to grow plants, and people bought in. So
yeah, definitely.
I thought that was
I think that's so cool. And also the fact that if you do have a product idea that you think is a little bit ludicrous, like growing plants better, you think of what's the market for that. Well, really, that could be a huge market. You never really know until you put it out there how many people can actually connect with that. Like, that blows me away. 55,000 people. That's a lot of people.
I mean, yeah, it really is a lot of people. But you got your plant junkies out there who are excited, and I don't know if they did market research or if they knew that they could have that kind of impact, success.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of those things. I struggle to grow plants, but I would never think that there could be an invention to make it easier, right? So it's kind of like they kind of came up with the thing that everybody didn't know they needed, and then once they saw it in front of them, it was like, oh, actually, I do need that,
Yeah, definitely. Another one I saw was like this music device. I think it was called Orba, right?
Yeah, so that was basically like it was like a musical instrument as designed for your hands. So basically, I don't know, my first interpretation was kind of like a bop it, you remember those things?
Yeah.
Like from way back in the day. But
Twist
it's obviously much more high tech, and you could really make kind of cool songs and melodies just based off this little handheld instrument that really brought a lot of like of the revolutions in production software technology, and basically just made it into a handheld device that was easy for anyone to use. Those production softwares can, people go to school for years, mixing engineers do, to learn those systems. But the Orba, yeah, it just came right in and made it easy for people. So
another one that's kind of interesting. So IR Arcade was actually one of my coaching students, and they also came on our show, the podcast here. So they were also, looks like, another notable campaign this past year.
Yeah, I mean, they raised close to $700,000 for basically an arcade device that could go in the home and you could play a lot of retro games.
You can they're doing this whole thing where you can download old school retro style games too. It's really neat. The guy's a genius who made it. And he's also a gamer, which I think a lot of people liked. But you guys can go and listen to that podcast episode if you want to, where we did it with the founder there. So that was really interesting. Do you have any other ones that stood out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, there was a Brooklyn music venue. It's called St. Vitus, and it raised $130,000 to stay open through the coronavirus lockdown. Obviously, music venues, event centers, they were hit really hard, and that campaign really sparked a larger movement, which was the Lights On program, which that Kickstarter launched to sustain cultural spaces. So I think it just showed, the power of Kickstarter to do social good. It's conscious capitalism in a lot of ways, and in an age where there's so much, speculation about cheating and lies in big business or whatever it is. Kickstarter really does feel like a grassroots platform that's greater intention is social good. So I really like the St. Vitus one for that reason. It's cool to see people getting out there and backing not only products but also just spaces and projects that they believe make the world a better place, so to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And even some of their other initiatives, like I know they were trying to help smaller creators with their Inside Voices thing to try to get them to start projects during quarantine, right? So it sounds like they're not just focused on these massive campaign categories necessarily. it's also trying to encourage arts and creative kind of projects and really innovation spaces where people can brainstorm ideas and meet other people and like, have this whole synergy, I think, going on here.
Right. It's a whole network of connections. It goes to work for, bigger, more established companies that are, looking to launch new products and get it out there to the masses. And it's also great for the little artists, just trying to get their art off the ground, which is really exciting.
Now, you've been writing for me more recently. Is there anything that has kind of surprised you that you've learned about Kickstarter itself or in your research with these stats or just in general the projects that you see? Has anything surprised you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm just surprised at just how fervent the backers are. Kickstarter basically proved itself to be recession proof. You know what I mean? And like, for you, a lot of the writing I do is more on the creator side and, how you can really launch a successful campaign. But, people are landing on really convincing sales pages, and which is leading to higher conversions, which is leading to higher campaign success rates. I think I'm just surprised at how much education is out there and how much people are really using, pre-launch strategies, setting the right campaign duration, making desirable rewards, making an awesome video. They're really mastering the art of converting. And on a crowdfunding platform, that's obviously so important, but it's just kind of incredible to see this creator backer relationship really starting to take shape in a predictable way, but also in a way where like predictable in that if you build your campaign page with best practices, you're going to have a much better chance of getting funded, but then also surprising in instances like Terra Planter where all of a sudden these campaigns can just take off out of nowhere. Yeah. So you never, you go into a Kickstarter campaign kind of like any startup, you don't really know what's going to happen, but there's just this opportunity for this like massive boom, and I don't think you really can get that anywhere else in business where like so to speak overnight, or in this case a campaign duration of 30 or 45 days, all of a sudden you have $6 million to grow a business.
Yeah, I think the other thing is the emotional connection that people have with these products. I mean, we even see that with our own, clients that we work with, where people are so freaking excited to get this thing, and even in the supporter phase for it to come out live on Kickstarter, right? In the pre-launch phase, and that level of like excitement and emotion is so much. It's fun to be a part of, right?
Right.
And it's different than just like going down to like Walmart and buying a product,
Exactly. I mean, it's real, like it practices patience. You know what I mean? Like when you back a Kickstarter campaign, yeah, it's not like going to Walmart. It's not like ordering something on Amazon, it's not going to be in your hands in 2 days. There's really a large anticipation period that people go through. When you back a Kickstarter project, it'll probably be, months before the product actually gets there. But I think, that waiting and that patience and that excitement that builds as, campaigns go through order fulfillment, I think that's kind of part of the addiction, so to speak, for these backers. They back these projects and then they follow the campaign updates all the way through. And then, later on, a couple months down the road, they're among the first people who have this product at their doorstep, and they really believe that this project or product, is gonna be in everybody's hands eventually and change the world. So it really does seem like these backers are willing to wait for a couple months, to be on the cutting edge, so to speak.
When it comes to the creators in the audience, like obviously these stats are interesting from like a academic standpoint. I think what was it, like 5 billion or something crazy that Kickstarter, the number of pledges that have been on the platform. Like, yeah. What do you think what's the conclusion or the takeaway for creators in the audience hearing all of these stats and some of the opportunity last year? What do you think the opportunity is for them this year?
I think the opportunity for them this year is just to take the chance, right? To take the leap. Like, you really don't know exactly what's going to happen to your campaign, but the opportunity comes in that there has been demonstrated success on this platform. Like you said, $5.4 billion raised. We're sitting in between 38 and 39% campaign funding success rates. So, if you build a beautiful campaign, if you have a great product, if you put together a great video, make desirable rewards, use your pre-launch strategy to really get your name out there, you have a pretty good chance of getting funded. I mean, you're talking 4 in 10 campaigns, I don't know if you could measure startups across the country, what percentage fail, but, that has to be higher than, the 40% we're seeing succeed here with Kickstarter. So I think it's just, if you do it right, if you put your best foot forward, there's a chance for sure to get funded. And then also there's a chance for you to really just take off and make your dream project
a reality.
Into your dream. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is like the fact that there have been many interviews we've conducted on the show where the creator wasn't successful the first time, they learn from that, they launch a second campaign, and then they are successful. So it's not either like a binary thing, like just because maybe you don't raise as much you want the first time, or you struggle a bit with your first campaign. That's normal, right? There's no reason. It isn't a game like you get struck out with baseball and you can't ever get back to the plate. It's almost like you can keep swinging until you hit a home run. There's really nothing that's holding you back from just launching another Kickstarter, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you asked, what opportunities out there. Obviously, there's the opportunity for successful funding, but also there's an opportunity to learn. There's an opportunity to learn about your product before you go to e-commerce. There's an opportunity to learn from a failed campaign so that you can come back stronger. I mean, I know, you've talked to a lot of creators who have, swung 2 or 3 times and then eventually did hit. It's basically just if you stick with it, if you truly believe in your product and your vision, then you're gonna take something away from running a Kickstarter campaign. It's never just gonna be, I launched, I failed, and I got nothing out of that.
Yeah, definitely. So you're going to be doing a lot more writing for me, and I mean, you've also been helping a ton this past year, and also helping me when it comes to other projects and stuff. So I really like your work a lot, and it's so cool to me some of the creative stuff that you're involved in as well. I know that you're really interested in poetry, and you also, I think, are a bit into the music scene, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are there any categories that you are looking at more interesting, like the writing category in Kickstarter or anything like that? Are you looking for help with the fulfillment side of your rewards on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or any other crowdfunding website? Fulfillrite is literally the gold standard when it comes to crowdfunding reward fulfillment. These guys will help you ship out your products, your packages, your orders to all of your customers and your backers. They've been working in this industry for a really long time. I totally vouch for their services, and they'll even do things like answer simple questions for you on fulfillment and shipping and figuring out how to get your products into the hands of your customers in the easiest way possible. If you're interested in learning more about them, you can go to fulfillrite.com or crowdcrux.com/fulfillrite, and that will take you to them. Again, that is FULFILLRITE.com.
Yeah, I mean, as a writer myself, I'm working on a novel, a second draft of a novel, and it's kind of an atraditional novel, and Kickstarter supports atraditional projects, so it's kind of exciting to just see, a lot of the books that are being launched on Kickstarter, and then also write the music category. I mean, you no longer really need like a record label to make it. Kickstarter and similar platforms are really giving young up and coming artists an opportunity to reach a larger audience. So I as an artist, I am just really excited and hopeful about what crowdfunding holds future. Yeah.
So for anyone who's listening, I'm like super busy, but you're doing a lot of writing on the site. What's your email, just so people can reach out to you if they like the show or they want any follow up on the stats?
Yeah, so I'm Jack, JACK, at crowdcrux.com. You can reach me there anytime.
Great. And yeah, he might not be able to get back to you always, but if you do have any questions on the stats or you'd like to see the article that Jack wrote, he can always link it to you, and I'll link it up in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for just presenting a bit of this to the audience, because I do think sometimes we get lost and we aren't aware of how things are going on like the macro economic scale, to throw out a big fancy word there. So I really appreciate you, and I think you have a lot of really cool insights as well with some of the interesting projects that are coming to light.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I really enjoyed coming on. 2020 was a big year for Kickstarter, and it looks like 2021 is primed for the same. So it's an exciting time to be a crowdfunder.
Definitely, man. We'll have to have you back on another topic, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. As always, my name is Salvador Briggman, and on this show, we talk about everything crowdfunding. Go and check out some of the other episodes we got out there when it comes to tangible projects that are raising money as we speak. I always try to have on interesting guests from different types of fields, and I think a lot of people out there might actually not agree with me on that, but I have a different approach. Like, for example, when I was first getting started, you would look at like one category, let's just say like the design category, the tech category, right? Or the tabletop category. And you're like, okay, we're gonna totally niche down. We're gonna do lots and lots of advice and teachings on this particular category. And like, I'm gonna show you how to launch a project in that particular niche. And like, to me, that's interesting. And I do think that's valuable. And that's why I bring on people from many different, subsections on Kickstarter. But at the same time, some of the best ideas that you get in life aren't always when you're in the same kind of echo chamber as everyone else. If you think about Silicon Valley, right? Silicon Valley is a massive echo chamber where everyone is thinking the same way. You go to different places around the world, whether that's LA when it comes to acting, or New York maybe when it comes to theater. Like there's to me such more creativity that comes about when there's a cross-pollination of ideas, where you're listening. Maybe you don't have a tabletop, right? But you're listening to this guy who ran a successful Kickstarter with a tabletop, and all of a sudden you get some ideas of what you can apply to your hardware product. Or you're doing more of a creative style, and you get some ideas of maybe how to have more of a business-minded approach when you're listening toward this design or tech gadget project, which I brought on the podcast. So to me, this like cross-pollination of ideas is so freaking important. And it's where a lot of creativity comes from. It's where you really get out of your own head, get out of your own industry, and you start to rethink the way that things are done. I think Elon Musk is a really great example of this, where he brings a lot of the software technology mindsets to the automobile industry, right? And even when it comes to other industries that he's disrupted. To me, when you have a cross-pollination of ideas, not only does it give you lots and lots of creative and interesting practices which you can apply to your Kickstarter campaign, but I think it also allows you to see what's working across the board and some of the commonalities that are out there, as well as how your specific project category might differ. So if you want a little bit more guidance when it comes to this, if you want to book a one-on-one coaching call with me and to go in depth into your project, these are getting booked really quickly. I'm considering doing maybe a group coaching program or something like that. If you want to book a one-on-one with me while that is still available, you can go to crowdcrux.com/coaching. That's crowdcrux.com/coaching to get started today on your project and have someone who has a lot of experience kind of look this over for you and just be like, this is realistic or this isn't. This is what you got to do going forward. This is who you should work with. Or maybe there's a potential of even working with me, depending on your project category and what kind of you have going there when it comes to your campaign. Either way, these are designed to be helpful one-off coaching sessions, sort of just laying out the blueprint for you so you're not doing guesswork and you always have so much uncertainty when it comes to doing something new. It's kind of like giving you more confidence in that way, knowing that this has almost been validated and checked off and like, yes, this is the right way forward, or no, you got to rethink this, man. So I really like to tell it as it is and not really sugarcoat it too much. So that sounds interesting to you, just go to crowdcrux.com/coaching. You can book your one-off call there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Give me a rating and review if you did enjoy the show, and I will see you next time.